I can't, in good conscience, give you a top 10 list in 2022. I'm not going to do it. But I'll give you a top 25. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. Today is not the day where I give you my top 10. Today we're doing 25 through 11, the movies that almost made the cut, but they just couldn't quite get there. And I'll also be giving you honorable mentions for the honorable mentions, because why not? If you're here right now and you want to support this channel, be sure to drop this video a thumbs up and let me know what movie is making my top 10. And also leave your lists down below. What films are the best of the year? What are the ones that resonated with you the most? Let's start with some movies that almost made the cut, but did not. Those films are Werewolf by Night. That's right, I'm counting it as a movie. On the Count of Three, The Whale, Till, Weird, Apollo 10.5, Close, The Woman King, and The Outfit. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is one of the best Marvel projects of the year. We're talking television and movies, right? And it's one of those movies that you just don't expect it to be on the level of the first. Obviously, we're missing one key element, and that's Chadwick Boseman. How are they going to do it? I mean, Ryan Coogler was faced with an impossible task, but I believe he not only accomplished his goal, I think he exceeded my expectations, because I just didn't think they could bring us a compelling story. I found the plot of Wakanda Forever to be more compelling than the first Black Panther, and even though we're missing Chadwick and we're missing the presence of a villainous Michael B. Jordan, I thought Namor was a really good villainous presence, right? And I was actually really surprised with some of the things I'm hesitant about. I'm like, is this going to work? And then they do it in the movie. I'm like, yeah, okay. It actually works. So I enjoyed this one. It was a quality sequel. Dan Trachtenberg deserves more projects in Hollywood. We haven't seen him since 10 Cloverfield Lane, and that movie was great. And then he brings us Prey, one of the most surprising films of the year for me, and one that just completely caught me off guard with how brutal it was. It's a spin on the Predator franchise, and I'm completely okay if this is the direction they go from here on out, putting the character of the Predator in different eras and allowing our main protagonists to find a way to take them down. I mean, that is fun, and this movie was fun. It was shot so well. I loved the violence. I loved the gore. It takes place in, I believe, 1719, and so you're dealing with this Comanche warrior that's trying to protect her people, but at the same time, they don't know if they believe her when it comes to the threat, so a lot to balance there. It was a bit slower than maybe I anticipated at points, but when the action picks up, it works well. This one deserves to be on my list. It's a beautiful thing about movies, man. If you would have told me at the beginning of the year, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, would be above a lot of other movies that I expected to be above it, but in my top 25, in my top 20 of the year, and it's pushing that, I would have called you crazy, but I would have been wrong, because it is one of the best animated movies of the year, one of the better movies of the year, one of the more compelling stories, and the way that it handles this character of Puss in Boots, I have a new respect for Banderas' take on the character, and I said this in my review, I'll say it again, it's Puss's version of Logan. Call me crazy. The character, he's on his last leg, he has everything to fight for, and he's trying to regain 8 of his 9 lives. The animation is stunning, the relationships that are formed are great, the villainous presences, they're really good. The movie's good. You should watch it. It's one of the best entries in the Shrek franchise, and I think it's going to start something really special. You want to talk about a showcase of great writing and great performances? Sarah Polley's Women Talking has all of those things, and it's one of the more compelling watches of the year, not necessarily because of what they do on a technical level or there's anything crazy about it. A lot of this is taking place in one singular location, and it kind of reminds me of, and I've seen countless comparisons, of a movie like 12 Angry Men, where the dialogue, that's the key. If they don't nail the dialogue, the movie doesn't work. Obviously, the performances have to be great. And Rooney Mara is great. Claire Foy's awesome. Jessie Buckley is fantastic. Even Ben Whishaw, who at first I'm hesitant. I'm like, is this going to be? Yeah, it's an integral character. The cast, an amazing ensemble. The dialogue, man, so impactful. The movie's unexpected. I wasn't as overtaken, like I said, by the filmmaking, by the color correction, all of that. But sometimes you just need a really competent script. That's what this movie is, and it's going to compel a lot of people, and it may even make you emotional. I've been talking about this movie since it came out because I'm offended that this movie was not respected more by critics. That is Bullet Train. David Leitch brought us a great action movie, a crazy romp, characters that are out of this world, insane. But that's exactly what this type of movie calls for. It's fast-paced. There's a lot going on within the plot. And I understand the whole, well, maybe overly convoluted. It's not going to work for a lot of people. I get it. But how often do you get a movie that's this much fun, so self-aware? It incorporates humor beautifully, and the cast is really great. Obviously, Brad Pitt's going to do a good job, but Joey King, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Brian Tyree Henry, Lemon and Tangerine are two of my favorite characters of the year. That's one of the better dynamics of the year. And of course, it's David Leitch. So he's going to handle the action well, and the action is great. This was my John Wick fix for 2022, and I'm happy to report it's still in the top 25. Look, I get it. Not everyone loved Nope maybe as much as they wanted, but I walked out of the theater thinking nothing but this was an experience. This is a cinematic experience that's evoking emotions very similar to what Spielberg did in the 80s and I guess the 90s, but just giving us a different kind of sci-fi alien movie and obviously relying on some of the themes to carry us through. And the fact that the movie is also relying on metaphors, and some people are going to watch this and see the chimpanzee storyline and go, what was that? Why did I waste my time? But I thought about this movie, and I tried to put the pieces together after watching, and, I watched essays and all of this, and the more I thought about it, the more I respected it and appreciated it. I still think it was trying to do too much. Nope is a very ambitious film, so it's not going to work for everyone, but I respect it, I appreciate it, and I'm really happy I watched it. Steven Spielberg, of course, it's a Spielberg movie. It's got to be on the list, right? Well, I think he's kind of getting back to form with The Fabelmans, and he's had some really great Oscar movies over the years. I was a little underwhelmed by The Post. I enjoyed Ready Player One. Not everyone did, but The Fabelmans is distinctly heartfelt on a level to where you watch it and you're like, that has to mean something a little extra to whoever our director is. And it just so happens it's Spielberg. And it just so happens that Gabriel LaBelle is playing a version of Steven Spielberg when he was young. And these experiences that we're seeing this young boy go through, well, they're very reminiscent to what happened to Spielberg. So that was beautiful. Obviously, it's a showcase for performances. Paul Dano and Michelle Williams, even Seth Rogen's. That's not good. Cinematography, great. The score really subtle, but I appreciated the subtleties. And, there were moments where I kind of questioned, is this worth spending 2 hours telling a story? But by the time you get to the end of the movie, I thought it absolutely was. Pearl, Mia Goth. It's Mia Goth's Joker. It's Mia Goth's, this is a showcase of what she can do. And she was really good in X, and I enjoyed X. I think X was more of a horror film. Pearl is definitely a horror film, but it relies less on the jump scare vibe and more so just a maniacal main character, someone who is a loose cannon, and you're just watching this take place. You're trying to experience it, not question some of the crazy things that happen in this movie, even though you're going to question. I thought West did such a good job with both films in the X universe, but Pearl spoke to me on a different level because you have genuinely one of the best performances of the year and a story that's compelling, but you get her, you don't get her actions, but you see the motivation behind her actions and you see why she snapped on the level that she did. And the way that this movie ends, and I mean the way it ends, what's happening during the credits, you will be locked in and in awe. And she was so good. It's in my top 25 of the year. I mean, this movie came out a long time ago, it feels like, and I still think about it, and I laugh. The unbearable weight of massive talent. This film had me cracking up. It's also a traumatic theatrical experience because while watching this movie, we had to stop halfway through and go crouch down in the hallway because there was a tornado outside. So that would have been an unbearable weight of a massive tornado. And that's a memorable theatrical experience, but the movie itself is hilarious. Nicolas Cage, I mean, you're getting all of the Cage-isms because he's playing a version of himself, not the actual Nicolas Cage, but we're seeing a little bit into his psyche of kind of what he thinks about himself, how he perceives other people perceiving him, that back and forth. And the movie starts to lose me in the third act. I'm like, this is going down such a conventional route, and you have all of this talking about these cliches, but now you're doing these cliches, but then something happens in that third act, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you got me. And it's brilliant. And I love the fact that you got me. And I appreciated this movie so much more once it ended, and it's just really funny. Like, I was laughing so hard. One of the best comedies of the year, and it's one of my favorite movies of the year. RRR. Rise, Roar, Revolt. This movie is on cloud 9. Not you watching. The movie is on cloud nine. It's doing some crazy things, but they're working. Everything's coming together so harmoniously that it's creating this experience that is not only authentic, and I say authentic, and I mean it, right? Musical numbers, action sequences, heartbreak, emotion, two main characters that you're just locked in on. It is a fictional history, but it's all about these legendary revolutionaries as they're leaving home, fighting for their respective country in the 1920s, and forming/unforming this bond between the two that is so special. You not only see that in the dialogue, but you see that in the action sequences. I go back to that one where my boys on my other boys' shoulders, and they're just running around, and they're beating people. I'm just like, I've never seen this. I've never seen this in a movie. It's an adrenaline rush from start to finish. And when the musical numbers hit, you're in it. You're in it to win it. The theatrical experience. I mean, I could definitely see this continuing to gain momentum for Oscar season because it's just so special. Some of the performances in there, not our main characters, but some side characters, not great. But overall, I think it's very well handled, and the direction is outstanding. Adam Sandler back on Netflix, but it's not a comedy, it's Hustle. And one of the reasons why Hustle is so high up my list is because you can feel Sandler's passion for basketball. And you can feel it if you are a fan of basketball, I think even more so, right? I grew up watching and loving basketball. I live in Kentucky. That's all we do here. We have basketball, horses, and bourbon. That's all we do. And so I'm watching Hustle, and I'm thinking to myself, this is like everything about this is perfection when it comes to giving basketball fans what they want, but also incorporating things about the game that, you know, if you're not a basketball fan, you're not going to notice, you're not going to care, but if you are, you're going to be like, that's awesome. Not only the people, but the rules of the game, how you play the game. The fact that these scrimmages that we're seeing in this movie, they look like legit scrimmages and not like, no offense, but actors, they try to play basketball and they just don't, they look clueless. But the movie itself is really good. Stanley's a compelling character. Bo Cruz is so likable. His journey, it's essentially Rocky, but with a different sport. But it doesn't matter, right? Very cliche, I understand, but I'm a little bit biased. I loved it. It's in my top 15. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. I didn't even review this film on this channel. I got to it a bit late, couldn't find it anywhere in my area, no screenings, no nothing. They didn't want me to see the greatness. That was Marcel the Shell. Wait a second. I have Marcel the Shell. Give me a second. I mean, come on. Look how cute he is. He's in his little box, and he's so detailed. Thank you, A24. This is awesome. They even gave me the little house that look at this. This is so cute. Look at him. Jenny Slate is amazing. I love the documentary style that this movie has and the heartwarming story revolving around Marcel, this documentarian, and Marcel's grandmother. But it's the idea of looking for something bigger and looking for something that Marcel believes is better. Is it fame, fortune, popularity? No, Marcel just wants to find his family. And that's like, I look at this movie, it's kind of like the Paddington of 2022. That's how I felt while watching. A24 knocked it out of the park. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio kind of blew me away. This is the best version of Pinocchio I've ever seen. I think this movie's better than the classic Disney version. I think it's a million times better than that crap we got earlier in the year and the other crap that we've gotten in the animated space. This is just a beautiful movie from start to finish. And you read that summary, during the rise of fascism in Mussolini's Italy, what? That we're getting deep with the themes, the stakes are high, Pinocchio's going to war, and obviously we get those moments that are reminiscent to what we've seen before, but they're handled in a completely different way. And I believe the best version of Geppetto that we've ever seen, the best version of Sebastian J. Cricket, Ewan McGregor was spectacular, Gregory Mann was awesome, the score in this movie, I think it could get an Oscar nomination. The music is oh so good, but it's the way that this film slowly begins to wrap up. They get a little off track in the second act, but all in all, this is one that families are going to watch and love. Robert Eggers' The Northman. Maybe the most accessible of his filmography, but also one of the more epic movies I've seen this year. The battle sequences, and they're a little bit fewer and farther in between than I had hoped for, maybe I expected going into this movie, but they're great. And Alexander Skarsgård, he is so believable as this brute force protagonist, this man who's going to do whatever it takes to avenge the death of his father, to find his mother, to save those that he loves. And when I say do what it takes, whatever it takes, right? Spend years and years trying to get to a place that may or may not have his answers. This dude is so much fun to follow. This movie, it goes a little off track at times, right? I wanted more Willem Dafoe. The scenes with his character, they were a little out there, but Robert Eggers is that type of director, combining horrific themes, a grounded and somewhat brutal plot. The cinematography is astounding in this film. I like everything about the music, the score on a technical level, the visuals, the final battle in the midst of that volcano is awesome. The performances, oh so good. The pacing's not going to work for everyone, but I watched it with my wife. Again, she loved it maybe more than I did. Park Chan-wook, Decision to Leave. I'm still stunned that this isn't being looked at more for editing when it comes to the Academy Awards. I mean, this is one of the most beautifully edited together movies I've seen in a long time. You could chop some of this up to visual effects and what they do with the scene transitions and characters going from one place to the other. But I look at the technical elements of Decision to Leave, not even talking about the story yet. It's one of those movies you're going to use to teach a film class. This is movie making 101. This is cinema. And yes, I watched this at the New York Film Festival, so I'm going to be a little biased, but Park Chan-wook's direction here is outstanding, amazing. It's not the best script he's ever dealt with. I still think it's a great script, but there were some things about the story that were either moving too quick for their own good, or they just didn't fully come together, right? Other than a few moments in the middle that I wasn't entirely vibing with, and the fact that it might go on just a bit too long, I was still moved by the ending. I still felt all of the emotions I needed to, and Decision to Leave hit me exactly how the director intended. And I just thought the movie was so stunningly made. I think he's an awesome director, and I haven't even mentioned the humor or the romance. So many good things about this film. Unfortunately, I have to stop there. This is all I can do right now. I can't give you my top 10. You can probably assume some of the movies that are going to be in there, but the order, if you're following me on Letterboxd, it keeps changing, and I'm not going to set that order until this video comes out. So if you're still here and you want to drop a like down below, that would be awesome. Leave your lists. What's an underrated movie that you've seen this year that could be right outside of that top 10 looking in? Thanks so much for being here. The top 10 video, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be huge, and I hope everyone had an amazing Christmas, or if this releases before, we'll have an amazing Christmas. I don't know yet. See you soon.